Welcome to the We Have a Spiritual Problem podcast, a podcast exploring the deep interconnections between personal wellness, societal changes, and spiritual growth. I'm your host, Dr. Jeff Armstrong. In this episode, I am excited to be joined by Rita Ricks, a spiritual transformation coach who has lived an extraordinary life filled with both challenges and triumphs. She is here to share her wisdom, joy, and insights, and why she believes we are living in a crisis of faith. Rita, welcome to my new podcast, the We Have a Spiritual Problem podcast. You were a guest in my other podcast, the Aging Well podcast, I believe it was episode 208. And when I started this podcast, it's like you were one of the tops on my list. I got to get Rita on this podcast.
I so appreciate it because we do have some spiritual problems. Absolutely.
Well, I think with this podcast, what we'll reveal is that pretty much any of the problems we're facing globally can be linked to spiritual problems. And I just want people to kind of understand how are we defining that so that the people who come from various belief systems and so on understand that, spiritual doesn't necessarily have to be religious, but for many of us, it is going to be kind of a key piece to our religion. But kind of before we get started, for those who did not have the pleasure of hearing you in the Aging Well podcast, just kind of give a little bit of an introduction to who you are and what you're about, and we'll get going into some deep questions.
I all last year spent time reassessing who I am as a coach. It was, things were different. Clients weren't coming in as regularly as they had been the whole time I've been in business. And so it was time for me to get a sense of, what am I doing? What am I doing? Who am I doing it for? And why am I doing it? And I realized, and my big question was, what do clients walk away after they hear me? What does my audience hear? And what I was able to surmise is that I am a spiritual transformation expert. I can show you how to move from chaos to calm. I can show you how to move from the inside, to live from the inside out. And that's important because it's the chaos that's causing the problem. It's the chaos, as you said, which allows us to just stay in the problem because we're focusing outside rather than living from the inside out. And it has been a wonderful awakening for me because I hear other coaches saying, you're going to be transformed and you're going through a transforming experience. But I believe that I show you how to be transformed. What is it you must do in order to be transformed? And that's what I'm excited about at this point. So as we move away from last year, which was an awakening, this year is a year of transformation. And I believe that I can really speak to that so much clearer now. So it took me, I've been working on this for almost a year in trying to figure out what do my clients walk away with? And that's what I think it is.
And I think that's important when you have people who are in your position to still understand that there's room to grow. I think a lot of times we go to a coach and we think they know it all. I'm a professor and my students, they think I know it all. And I'm just learning stuff. I've been doing this for 25 years and I'm just learning. So you are a spiritual business coach, correct?
Well, yes, I am a spiritual business coach, but again, I brought in the whole spiritual transformation piece because even as a business, the business comes from us. And I've had clients who will say, well, no, my business is separate from my personal. Well, no, it's not. Because when you're creating your growth plan, you have to include when you're going to have time for your family, when you're going to go on vacation, when you're going to spend time in quiet for yourself. That has to go in the growth plan. And so, again, I love talking with entrepreneurs. I've been in business now 40 years. So I love talking with entrepreneurs and getting them to meld the two. Yeah.
So you are like the perfect person for this podcast. We have a spiritual problem. It's like somebody comes to you, my business is failing. Well, you have a spiritual problem.
That's right.
Why is it? And before we kind of dive into some of the other topics, how do you describe your spiritual or philosophical perspective and how has it shaped your worldview?
Oh, gosh. I love that question. I am, I am, I am spirit. I came here as spirit. All of this outside is how I am, but it is spirit inside. I came here with spirit. I will leave with spirit. And I believe once I was able to align my spirit, once I was able to align me, all of me, with my spirit, things just, they started to happen. No longer do I worry. No longer is there doubt, because I know that I'm guided by my spirit. And how do I nourish my spirit? I'm jumping right in right now, because I do have a 3-pronged formula, and I shared it with you the last time I was on. So I'm going to share it again. This 3-pronged formula is that every morning I get up, and before I touch the television, or before I grab my phone, I grab my journal and I begin to write. And I write, mine is a Dear God letter, but yours can be a grateful letter, you know, what you're grateful for. At any rate, I simply write down what's on my heart, what's in my mind, and I download it. I just download it. I get rid of it. I've been doing this long enough that really it's not so much about complaining anymore. It's really about being grateful and how yesterday went. There's nothing I can do about it, but if there's something today, then I will include that in my, in my prayers. And then I close my journal. When I close my journal, I let it go. I do not close my journal and then worry about what I just spoke about. I expect that God hears me and his will be done. And so I move on. So the first step is journaling. The second step is reading something positive. And I have a book. It's on my in the shop of my website, ritaricks.com. And it's just 365 actions. One you can take every day for a year, but something positive, something that will put you in a good space after you've downloaded. The third leg, the third step is to set, hopefully not your phone, but a clock that you have for 20 minutes, and you get silent. You see how I just sat back? You just get silent. You just relax. You let go of your shoulders. You start to move your head around, and you relax. And in that time, I hear so much. In the beginning, it's a lot of noise. And when I first started this in 2010, I always had my journal next to me so I could write down what I was hearing. Because at the end of the day, you've got to discern, is that after a while, are you hearing your voice, or are you hearing from the universe or God, whichever you want to call? But I will tell you this from the bottom of my heart, the solution is in the silence. Whatever you are asking for or needing, or whatever is happening out here, you bring it inside and you just sit and listen, and you will get the solution.
So you use the word spirit. How are you defining, my spirit?
My spirit is who I am. It is the essence of me. And so I see it as this space, and here's my heart, but I see it as this round, almost like a ball that's just kind of going around. Nobody's ever asked me that, Jeff, so I love that. But I envision it as a kind of this ball that's just going around and around and around. And when I'm down, it's not going as fast. When I'm up, when my energy's up, it's just going around and around and around. And I'm getting these wonderful ideas, and I'm getting this energy, and I'm feeling so grateful. I'm also feeling so connected to God. Okay? So again, whether you call it the universe, whether you call it some entity, we must be connected. We must be connected. And that alignment that I feel releases, because it's inside, not out here, it releases the doubt. It releases the fear. It simply allows me to sit back, know what it is I'm asking for, and then sitting back, because I know that it's going to be fine. And I know that it will happen. Either that will happen that I ask for, or something better. But I've had to really, really, really work on my patience, because it's not necessarily going to happen overnight. I also had to work on making sure that I don't get distracted. that's really difficult because I can be all over the place. So going inside, settling down, just kind of settling down has been incredibly helpful as well. Because we're not human. I know I said this on your last podcast. We're not human doings. We are human beings.
I love that.
That's it. It's the being. That's the being of me. That's the essence. It is my being. That's the answer, Jeff.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I think, you mentioned kind of that connectedness and everything else. We all have kind of our spirits. And I think from my perspective, anybody listening to this, they don't have to be a believer. You could be anything from
Correct.
an atheist through to, insert faith system. But we all
Please.
have that kind of energy within us. It's that space between the physical that we're trying to define. And when we're connected to that, we're connected to something much bigger. And it's that importance of going within, finding that connection within ourselves that goes without ourselves.
And I think, again, I'm still thinking about your question. I do believe that's our being. That's the essence of who we are. As I said, we're not human doings, we're human beings. And so we must be still, and we must be quiet, and we must be grateful, and we must be thankful. So the being is who we are. The doing is when we end up going outside,
Right.
But we start the thinking and the planning inside. I was listening to a piece from Smokey Robinson the other day, and he wrote the song You Better Shop Around in 25 minutes. 25 minutes. The words, the music, everything. That's because that's the essence of who he is. That's his gifts. That's another thing. We all have gifts inside of us. I believe we came to this planet with gifts, and we've not even begun to use all the gifts that are inside. I'd like to go back without any gifts. I want to have used all my gifts. And I was encouraged by Smokey when he said that. I could sit here and talk all day about this, about faith, about trust, about, again, not worrying. Worrying doesn't feed you. It doesn't serve you well. It doesn't do anything except make you old looking. So as we talk about this being, it inspires me and it excites me. And so I know that this is why I'm on this planet, because my purpose is to share my wisdom and my knowledge with others, to bring them into this wonderful space of being.
Can you imagine the world if everybody had that same reckoning? That we all
Absolutely.
realize that we're here for a purpose of
That's
sharing our wisdom, sharing our gifts, and that no matter what our state in life, because a lot of people will insert, I'm just and
Yes.
then, whatever career. And it's like, well, so what? That's where you're at, but be
That's
the
right.
best that you can be. And
That's
just
right.
because somebody has celebrity or, there's
Those
a
are
lot
titles. Those are
Yeah.
all titles and labels.
there's a lot of singers out there that, are, I don't want to say at the level of Smokey Robinson. Career-wise, they're making money, they're performing, they're putting people in the seats at the auditoriums and whatnot, but they ain't Smokey Robinson. There
Exactly.
are singers and performers that just give so much more, and it's not this kind of auto-tune, AI kind of generated garbage that we're
Yeah.
getting now in our
Yeah.
generation.
I love music. I love singing, but I also love jazz. And I listen to the instruments, and I can feel the energy and the spirit of the person who's playing. Even though there's no voice, you can hear. That's why they're here. That they're placed on this earth to give this music. And so all day long I'm listening to jazz, instrumental for the most part, because I'll get distracted. There I go, listening to the song, singing it. So I listen mostly to instrumental, but they're just musicians. It's just who they are. It is the essence of who they are. And that's how I want to be seen as a transformation expert. Yeah.
Yeah, I never thought of jazz as a spiritual music, but all of a sudden you've just put that thought in my head that, it's coming from within. There's not tied to notes. It's just an expression of what is in the moment. And I think
Yes.
it's a great example for how we should be living our lives.
Yes. because they I watch them when they're on the stage. They are so into it. They're in another place, you know. Keiko Katsui is one. Brian Culbertson is another. Dave Koz is another. They're so in, and when they're entertaining, you just sit back and just watch them and hear them, and they have to come. They go to another place. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
So regardless of specific beliefs, are there values or principles you believe are universal that really can help us address the spiritual problems in our society?
I think I'm gonna answer that a different way if it's okay.
That's fine.
Is that okay? Okay, so understanding your current state. It is literally a handout that we give when we begin working with clients. And it is an assessment, and there are 3 categories. The first category is self-worth, the value of you. The second category is feelings and emotions. And the third category is crisis of faith. So I'm going to go through them real quickly if that's okay. And the audience can listen, and you're supposed to check all that apply. So I will go a little bit slower so that folks can write them down if they feel that it applies to them. So first we ask about self-worth, which is the value of you. So we ask, is there a lack of confidence within you? Do you have difficulty making decisions? Do you put others first? Are you not nurturing yourself? Do family members take advantage of you? Do you continue to draw toxic relationships? And are you addicted to negative emotions? So all of those, I believe, are important because what they're showing is you spend more time working against yourself. You do not hold you're not respectful of yourself. You're disrespecting yourself. And so that's the first column. How do you value you? How do you feel about your self-worth? The second column are feelings and emotions. Do you find yourself being sad, angry, lonely, stressed, with no direction, chaotic? You feel chaotic. You're unforgiving, and you have trouble managing resources such as money and time. So these emotions, I believe, come from the first column. As a result of how you feel about yourself, it causes these feelings of emotion, sad and angry and lonely, just to name a few. And then we come over to the third column, which is the crisis of faith. Do you feel unfulfilled? Do you feel that there's a lack of purpose in your life? Do you feel out of alignment? Do you feel disconnected? Do you not know what you want? Do you feel that you're totally in control, which is perceived control? And are you not being obedient? And with that one, meaning, are you not following your heart? It's as simple as that. Are you not following your heart? You're just out there, whatever, throw stuff on the wall like spaghetti, and whatever sticks, that's the way you're going. So in my opinion, the fact that your self-worth is low causes the feelings and emotions, and then it ends up with the crisis of faith, the spiritual problem, because we don't know who we are. We stay angry, and we're disconnected. We're not in alignment. Does that kind of help with your question?
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Great. Great.
So I was going to ask you, what you hear when you hear the phrase, or what do you think when you hear the phrase, we have a spiritual problem? What does that mean to you? Well,
I think it goes back to the crisis. The fact that everything on the planet is what we are doing. And the problem comes from us not paying attention, being unfulfilled, lack of purpose, out of alignment, disconnected, not being obedient. Were we to spend more time in silence and working on, again, not living out here, not watching what everybody else does. Oh, that person started a business, I'm going to start one. Oh, that person took her business to TikTok, I'm going to take mine. It's got to be my purpose. I'm the only one that can do what my assignment is. My assignment is to be this spiritual transformation coach. And I have to stay there. I have to be focused on that. I have to be intentional. And once I am, then again, my assignment is clearer and the ideas come in. I heard one time, opportunity stalks preparation. Opportunity stalks preparation. So as long as I am preparing every single day, being quiet, listening, understanding what my assignment is today, that's all I can do. And then following it, because we hear it. I've met two women in particular who have used their grandmothers, one for peach pie, the other for bread pudding. And they were in the corporate world. And then they retired. And they took their retirement and they started this. And they're both in Walmart now. It's just these women who started in their kitchens. And and they said, well, it was always there. But I was giving it away. I didn't think about making money because I just loved it and it was honoring my grandmother. And I'm saying, yeah, but now that you monetize it, you really honoring your grandmother, So how many of us have an idea? Let me put it this way. All of us have an idea. But how many of us have listened to that idea? How many of us have researched that idea? How many of us have said, I can do this? It's so interesting because last night, Jeff, I wrote a blog on faith versus fear. And the one word that I put in there, I don't know, maybe 10 times was trust. You have to trust yourself. You have to trust that you can do what it is you want to do. Because that's what life is all about. Being connected, in alignment, understanding that you're unfulfilled, and I don't care what it is you do. You will continue to be unfulfilled until you figure out what it is you're supposed to be doing. And I promise the audience, you already know. You already know what it is.
So as I listen to you, I hear a message that can be taken by what we would consider the more religious, and I don't like using the term religious because as we've been talking, it's beyond just, well, I go to church, at Christmas and Easter, or, I go to synagogue on Saturday, or I go to mosque, whatever it might be. But I hear a message that can be perceived by those individuals as certainly a God message. But for our listeners who might be struggling with this whole idea of whether there's a higher power, a God, or what it is, and how we define him or her for some, whatever it might be, I hear a message for them as well, that this is a universal message. This is not something that demands of us to commit to, any kind of religious, and I don't want to use the word faith because I want to ask you, when you're saying faith, what do you mean by faith?
When I say faith, I'm really talking about the trust in me. That's my self-worth. I trust that what I'm hearing is what I should be doing. Again, we came here with purpose. So that's the key. Until we figure out what our purpose is. Why are we here? It's not random. We were chosen some kind of way to be here. Something chose us to be here at this time. Why are we here now and not before? And why are we going to leave? What's going to happen when we leave? Those are questions that are out here. But at the end of the day, I'm not wasting another day. I'm not wasting another minute. Minutes matter. That's what it is. Because I just heard this. This moment matters. Right here, right now. And if we're wasting it, we don't get it back. But I continue to remind myself that this moment matters. So don't waste it. Don't just sit around saying, I don't know what to do. I was talking to a group the other day, and the guy said, I said, and what do you want to do? Well, I have a clothing line. I said, that's exciting. So what are you doing with it? I don't have the resources. Well, you're talking to a business coach. Let's talk about resources. There's money out here. Yeah, but I can't afford. It was so negative that he's not ready. So I believe in my heart that he's got the skill, because that's how entrepreneurs start, with the skill, something they can do. It is the business aspect that usually kills our dream, because there's so much to that. that we don't know. But then that's when we need a coach. That's maybe when we need to take classes. That's maybe getting a mentor. But we say no. We say no. We don't trust ourselves to do it. And that's the saddest part. Yeah. So we've been given this assignment. We've been put on this earth to do it. And now we're not doing it. So back to one of your statements, what if everybody was following their assignment? What if everybody in the world was doing exactly what we were brought here to do? Can you imagine what that might be like?
I'd love to imagine that. I'd love to realize that. I don't know if we'll get to that point. I hope we can.
Yeah, yeah.
But, you talk about entrepreneurs, as a professor, I encourage my students to become entrepreneurs because it's like you're going to make more money in your life working for yourself and creating jobs and opportunities for other people than you're going to make following somebody else's idea. And one of my favorite books when I had a business for a brief period of time was this book called The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur. And I forget who the author is.
The what? The what?
The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur.
I thought that's what you said.
Yeah,
okay.
And he's a bit crass, and the title comes from that crassness, and I won't go into all that. But it is a really good approach to starting a business where the idea of the toilet paper is you're finding the resources you have available to you at this moment, and you don't worry about going too big. Like you're a person with the clothing line. It's like, I think he thinks he's got to have his big factory and start hiring hundreds of people. He may have a sewing machine and a back room in his house that he can start making clothes. And I don't know if that's the situation, but so you start doing that. And then maybe you're selling it to, you're going kind of store to store. Hey, I have this product. And, you won't have as much to lose when you start that way. And it takes away that fear because it's like, I'm not investing hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars in a business that could fail tomorrow. I'm investing what I have available now to be able to lose that if I'm going to lose. And we will lose sometimes in business. Entrepreneurs do not always succeed. My business didn't succeed, but I look back at it as this was a huge lesson for me in so many different ways, and it gives me the opportunity to be a better professor in teaching my students what to do, not to do.
So our purpose pulls us. Our purpose is what gets us up every morning. And so the entrepreneur who starts with the sewing machine, it energizes. When we're doing our skill, it energizes. So I was a teacher for 15 years, never, ever, ever thought about going into business, ever. But once I realized, and I never really called myself a business person, I'm an entrepreneur because I've got this idea. So where you are now is sharing with us what you learned when you were in that part of your journey. And see, that's the other thing. I don't think that there's failure when we learn from it. I really don't. I think it helps us to grow. And that's why it was so important last year for me to really stop and assess where I am. And I had 2 business coaches, as well as a spiritual coach. You can't have enough. I'm in a mastermind group now, and I love mastermind groups because now you have other people with challenging problems that end up being very similar to mine. So the bottom line of this is that we have to continue growing. We can't settle. We can't say, okay, I've done it, because this is not, it's a journey, and we have to, and we've got to learn to enjoy the journey. It's not, I got to get here and then I'll be done. Nope. I found that out. It's because as soon as you get here, you got to get here. So it's a journey. And one of my coaches said, it is better to, how did she put it? To be imperfect with your actions than perfect with no actions. It is better to be imperfect in your actions than to be perfect with inaction. So we have to do. We have to do. And so when I'm in, I've been excited about having this conversation with you. It gives me the energy, to get up, to do what I had to do in order to be ready for this, because this is my purpose. And that's the beauty when or anybody, not just entrepreneurs, but when anybody gets to the point where they feel like getting up in the morning is a joy. it's a blessing because I get to do what I'm supposed to be doing again today. And we
And I
have to
feel-
stay in the present. Let me just mention that too, Jeff. Being silent really helps you to stay in the present because today is all we have. And so that's been a blessing for me. I don't look at what happened yesterday because I can't do anything about it. I don't look at tomorrow because it may or may not come. But today is all I have. And my mantra is what I do today forms my tomorrow. So I got to do it today so tomorrow will be better.
In addition to teaching and having the 2 podcasts, I do a blog that I don't post as much as I would like. At one point, I was posting every day for a period of time. I was challenged by a friend of mine who's a collegiate wrestling coach. And so I was doing it from the moment he charged me to do it to the NCAA tournament. But the blog post is called Carpe Memento, and we talk about seize the day, but the day is 24 hours. The most important thing is we seize this moment that we are in right now.
That's right.
And then I have one of my mantras for the day is be your best today, be better tomorrow.
That's it.
Yeah, and
That's
those
it.
things are just living in the moment, being the best that I can be right now, and expect that tomorrow I'm going to do it a little bit better. And it doesn't have to be tremendously better. It just has to be little baby steps in that right direction.
I love it. We are in such alignment,
Yep.
Yeah, that's really good. That's good.
So do you see connections between spirituality or the lack thereof and issues like mental health, social isolation, and a lot of the polarization that we see in our country right now?
What I was gonna answer when you first started was that I am attracted to those who have similar values as mine, and that's important to me. And I do believe that I know there are people who have different values from me, and mind you, when I say I choose to avoid because that's not nourishing me. Now, I can talk all day to somebody who doesn't have those values. I can listen to them. I can ask them questions, but I cannot bring them into my inner circle because it just goes against the grain of who I am, the essence of who I am. And so that is why it's even more important at this point as I am coaching people who are struggling with all that's going on, all of the circumstances. I believe when you live from the inside out, regardless of the circumstances, and it's those. There's so many who are sandwich generation because I'm at the beginning of the baby boomers, and I'm not going anywhere for a minute, And so you've got these kids who are in their 50s, they're grown people who have their parents and they have their children. And so that's the challenge. You have women who are being abused. You have children who are being kidnapped. There's all kinds of circumstances that are going on where we thought we could go to churches and schools and be safe. So those actions, I believe, and I don't study mental health so much. My colleague does. But I do believe that they are disconnected from their source. Let me say that. They're disconnected from their source. They're disconnected from their being. And so that makes it very difficult to be obedient and to do the right thing.
I kind of like that, the idea, when you talk about being attracted to people that, kind of share your values. And I think we live in a society right now where we feel like our values cannot merge together, and it's an us and them kind of thing rather than, okay, we have these different values. I can't accept these values that you have, but what do we have in common? How do we bring that together rather than just allowing that to separate? Because when we do that, there's a good chance, those of us that have, say those of us like I have all the right values, but those who have, the values that are the appropriate values, however you might define those, they're going to draw those people to those values. And I think that's kind of where you're coming from is like, you're not going to sacrifice these values that you have for to just simply get along with somebody who doesn't have those values. And if you bring those people in to your group without those values, they have that tendency to bring down your values. So we have to kind of hold to the values that we hold most sacred, but we have to allow for other people to kind of share their values without interfering. Am I making any sense whatsoever?
Yes, and I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you.
Thank you. I need help.
I'm going to help you because that was good. It was good what you said. I know people who have a very different opinion than I, but our values are similar. And so that is the difference. So now we're talking opinions. Now we're talking how you perceive something versus how I perceive it. But at the end of the day, we both want what's best for our families, for ourselves and for our families and for our community. So to me, that's different from somebody who absolutely does not have my values, you know? So I'm separating. There are a lot of us who, again, who have similar values, you know, maybe 4 out of 5 of mine or 3 out of 5. So we can have a conversation because if you have my values, you're willing to listen. You're willing to try and understand. You're willing to offer your opinion in a respectful way. That's a value. Those are 3 values right there. Right. So we can talk. But if you don't want to listen, if you are mocking me, if you're talking about me, if you're chastising me, you don't have my values because all you want to do is bring me down. Yeah, that's not going to happen.
I like that. You did a much better job than I.
Well, I had to hear you though. I had to hear you, and that's something that I, you know, you're giving me responses that I can use. So yeah.
So with that, what roles do you think the concepts like compassion, forgiveness, mindfulness play in solving what we might describe as spiritual problems? I mean, I think those are the values that you're kind of talking about.
Ask me that again, please.
Yeah. So what role do concepts like compassion, forgiveness, or mindfulness play in solving what we might describe as spiritual problems?
Those are practiced inside. They're not practiced out here. Compassion and mindfulness, they're not practiced out here. You have to go inside. So I believe the more, which is why I do what I do, the more we can get people to live from the inside, the compassion comes automatically. You know, the mindfulness is part of who we are, you know, in being able to listen, to settle. And we're listening from in here. And I use that term. Remember I was saying, because I'm very visual. So the ball was this, and now I know it's my being, you know. And so that's the connection. So I feel that as we go inside, as we spend more time inside than out here. You know, I once was just a news junkie. I'll be the first to say it. But then I had to stop because there are too many people who are giving their opinions more so than the facts. And so I said, okay, I'll listen to it twice a day and then go from there, you know, with what I'm having, because it's difficult. What is fact? What isn't? What's your opinion? What isn't? And so I stopped that. And it's fine because here's another thing. I can only do what only I can do, Jeff. I can only do what only I can do. And so that's what I do. Whatever it is that I'm supposed to be doing today, I can't change anybody's mind. I can only change the way I hear it. I can't, there are lots of things that I can't do, but those things that I can do, like encouraging others, like being, showing compassion for others, like picking up the phones and calling people and just checking on them, like hugging people, like for me, in my quiet time in the morning, praying for you. That's who I am. Those are the things I can do. I can pray if I feel that your heart is hardened, that God will open your heart. I can pray that if you're having difficulties with the child, you know, who is, say, on drugs, that you back off and, you know, watch and get as much help as you can. But at some point, you may have to let go for a while. So I can only do what only I can do. My granddaughter drove up she was leaving yesterday morning and she's in nursing school. And so when I talked to her about 8 o'clock, she had been up all night. and she was just riled. So, she had taken an Ambien, which she knows I don't take anything. And now she's drinking coffee, trying to get ready to drive. And I was very upset with her. And she knew it. And I finally said, okay, we'll talk about it when you get here. And we did. It wasn't any sense in my fussing. She was going to leave Charlotte and come to Richmond. So stop, Rita, stop. Because after all, she is 27. That's the other thing. She is a grown woman. And so I let it go. And then we had an amazing conversation about it when she got here. And I'm just so grateful. She has taught me, this is my first of 2 granddaughters. She has taught me when to say, I'm sorry. I should not have said that to you. I should let you do this. I should let you. I'm always going to be here, but you have to try some things yourself. I can't keep you from everything. I'm not even supposed to, because that's where your faith comes, So I might have gotten a little bit off track, but I feel that that's what I can do, is share with you, even with my clients. I think you need to think about this a little bit more. But it's not about running their lives. I am here to try to remove some of those barriers, stand in total and absolute support for you, listen to you, and bring in alternatives.
Yeah, I would love to see all people on this earth have that same attitude.
Yeah.
What a wonderful place it would be. Think of Louis Armstrong. What a wonderful world it would be. So.
Absolutely. But it just happens one person at a time. And so, the mere fact that you and I have connected, is important. And so, like we were saying, it's not a whole bunch. It's just one person at a time.
Right. I had Rob Kelly on a recent episode of this podcast, and he's labeled as the Gordon Ramsay of addiction therapy. Very colorful guy. But, kind of at the end of the podcast, he was like, if only one person listens to this episode, we've done something today. And I think it was a good, I don't want to say a wake-up call for me, because I don't think it was a wake-up call, but it was a good reassurance, I guess, for me, that doing this podcast, having this conversation we're having right now, if only one person hears it, we've done something. And I think if we all took that approach in our life, if we just did what we can do in this moment, carpe memento, and it impacts one person, we've done something. Because that impact, if you've impacted one person positively, they're going to go off, they might impact one person, and that person might impact one person. But at some point, that somebody's going to impact more than one person, and then it starts to spread.
That's right.
And I think I love your philosophy of just, what can I do? Turning it in on ourselves, our role in being spiritual and solving the spiritual problems of this world isn't about doing anything magnificent or being special or anything like that. It's that we're not special. Yeah. It's like, but there's something bigger than ourselves. And when we go inside, we have the greater impact on what's outside.
Oh, man, that's it. You can drop the mic, Jeff. That's it.
I can't. It's on a boom.
Oh, okay.
But
that's good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, people like you inspire me, and that's what I love about doing this podcast. And I've said it in some of the talking head episodes that I've done. Is like, I'm not here as some kind of spiritual guru. I want to bring in the people that have more wisdom than I do, and have them share that wisdom. And if the spirit is awakened, things are going to come out of it. And I've said stuff at times where it's like, that wasn't me. That came from somewhere else, someone else. And even anything, we say a quote or something like that. You may have just mentioned, Louis Armstrong, what a wonderful world it would be. That didn't just come to me. It was years of listening to that beautiful song and his beautiful music. That's right. The inspiration that we get on a daily basis is what makes us our best today and better tomorrow.
This that this moment matters that I just said was from a very special friend of mine who was a spiritual coach at a retreat center that I enjoy going to, and he passed away after 2 years with brain cancer.
Oh,
and so sad. At his memorial service, he had 3 sons, and there were so many people there because this guy was just so amazing. But But when his younger son said, my dad left us with so many things to say, so many things to remember. He said, but the one thing I will never forget that he told me is, this moment matters. And he said it 5 times. And then he said, now I want you to say it with me. And we probably said it 10 times. He said, that's what I want my dad to be known for. And so I use it because this moment matters. We don't spend enough time appreciating time, embracing it, recognizing it, spending time with ourselves. It's always got to be with somebody else, Somebody's always got to be the room, or there's got to be music on, or the TV's got to be on. What is wrong with you spending time with yourself to reassess who you are and where you are? That's the time we're supposed to be spending. That's where people begin to understand why they're here.
Well, you just changed the title of this podcast episode. I was going to call it Crisis of Faith, because that's kind of what we talked about before we started. And, that was kind of your third point, and it was kind of the launch point. But I think I got to change it to This Moment Matters. Because, again, we think of problems, we dwell in those, we dwell in the past, we dwell in the future, but this moment matters. And if we are in this moment, we're solving those spiritual problems.
Amen. That's it. That's it. Take your time. Take your time. That's good, Jeff. That's good. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. What practices or tools, whether spiritual, secular, or scientific, do you believe help individuals or communities address spiritual or existential problems or struggles? You mentioned kind of your 3-pronged approach. I think that's probably the answer.
Yeah. I think I love roundtables. I love roundtables. I love masterminds. And I love, and I'm saying this, I love intercessory prayer. And I'm going to explain that. About 9 months ago, I was listening to a pastor, and I saw it running down the bottom that they had an intercessory prayer team that prays 7 days a week at 5 a.m. And I get up in the morning anyway. I'm up early. And I thought, I'm going to go try that. It was, I heard it on Sunday. I said, I'll try it on Monday. I'll be on for like 15 minutes, see what it's like, and move on. And I was on, and I stayed on till 5:30. And then I went back on the next day, and I stayed on till like 5:45. Make a long story short, I am on that call every morning at 5 a.m., 7 days a week. And they have different people, mostly women, who come on and pray. But to hear them pray and to hear what they pray about is, they touch everything. They touch everything. People who are sick, and the EMTs and the nurses and the doctors and the insurance people, and we can, so they pray, but then we also, those of us, I'm a listener, because I'm just listening. They can pray. Listen, they can pray for 30 minutes, Jeff. I've heard it. They're just praying. And so what I do when they ask for prayer requests or testimonials, I've done that a couple times. And this past Thursday, my daughter was interviewing at 8:30 because there was a promotion that she was going after. And so I asked for prayer that she would be calm, and trust that she had the answers. And I also asked for prayers for my business. I had 2 meetings on Friday that are critical to my business. And so today I was able to report that my daughter did get the promotion, and that awesome. I did get 2 prospects to come on board with me, So I believe just sitting in a space with people who share my values and just listen to them praying for other people, not just themselves, mostly not themselves. They're praying all over the world with the wars and the tragedies that we have. They encompass the world, and 2 things happen. Number one, I love it because I've already been prayed for today, and then tomorrow will be another day. So I'm just in today. But the other part is that I realize the world is so big. It's not just me in Richmond, Virginia. It's people all around the world that they're praying for. And that just makes me feel part of a larger community. Do you know what I'm saying? And
Absolutely.
so it has been an absolute blessing for me to be on. In my life, I never thought. And I was down in the Bahamas. I did a spiritual retreat down there recently, but they have the same time zone as mine. So I was able to listen then because I wake up. And so I'm very grateful. And here's the other thing. They have a 9:00 prayer call in the evening. And so if you're not a morning person, you can get on it in the evening. So all they're doing, I shouldn't say all, but it is. All they're doing is just praying for any and everybody who's asking. Then, other people, like they know some of the prayer warriors as they're called, and so they'll send them an email, and then the prayer warrior will say, I just got an email for so, we need to pray for so, and you only say first names, you never say last name, you never go in what the problem is, pray for him because he has cancer, or pray for her, because she has COVID, whatever. So it's not gossipy, we don't know anything. I've never seen these women in my life. I know them by voice, so... Yeah. It's bigger than us. It's bigger than us. And we have to stop thinking that it's all about us. It's not. It's all about somebody else.
Yeah, and I bet that those women, when you ask them, what they are doing, kind of, what's their impact on the world, it's, I'm just a prayer warrior. I'm just a prayer warrior. I just pray. I can't do much. And it's like, baloney, you're doing a lot more. I mean, there's people that can write a big check, but they're doing less for the world than that person that, and it's like the widow's mite in the Bible, where it talks about, giving that small, but the last of what you have to give is having a far bigger impact than giving a lot from the more that you have.
Yeah. I 7 days a week.
That's a lot.
And like I say,
that's a commitment.
I have looked at, we start at 5. And the next thing you know, it's 5:30. This woman has prayed this entire time. And it was just beautiful. You're just listening. You're going, oh, yeah, I didn't think about that. And they're very knowledgeable, of what's going on. Because they've typically listened to the news even before I have. And so, it's really phenomenal. So in asking your question, we just need to be in alignment with each other. We just need to be. And so my joining that prayer group, which I never would have, I don't know, it was just God bringing me there. And that's what I love. And that's what I'm doing. And so then I'm able to help others. I've learned how to pray better. It's not all this. It's just, for me, it's good morning, Father God. This is where I am. This is what I want to see happen today. It's easy. It's easy. So like you say, let's get away from all of the hoopla of religion and all of that, and just speak of what's in our heart. What is in your heart?
It goes back to your being a human being, right?
Yes, exactly.
So for our listeners who are struggling with their own sense of purpose or meaning, what's one small step they can take today to start addressing that?
First of all, they can contact me. I would love to talk to them. So my website is ritaricks.com, and you can go to the Contact Us and contact me. I would love to talk to you. That's the first thing. But the second thing may be that you have to understand how important you are to the world, how valuable you are, how your gifts will help to lift somebody. And so once you can get rid of the doubt, actually that, again, faith versus fear, that blog will be on my website by Wednesday of next week. Again, it's ritaricks.com. Read that, because I talk about what faith is versus fear, and some things you can do to negate that fear. Because that's all it is fear. That's all it is fear. And so, no, I'm not ready to talk to Rita, but I can read the blog and begin to recognize who I am as a human being. You were chosen to be here, and you have a purpose. And we're all excited for you to bring out your gifts and let us see them. I
was going to ask you for final words, but I think I'm going to drop the mic on that one. I've been joking in these early episodes that, with the Aging Well podcast, I have a little tagline at the end, but in this podcast, it just kind of ends with some profound statement from these wonderful guests that I'm having on there. So I'm just going to stop there. I'm not going to say a thing except thank you and God bless you, and just keep doing what you're doing.
And I look forward to the next time we're on.
That sounds good. I'm looking forward to it already.